I'd like to thank everybody for joining us here today. This is an issue that is extremely important to me and has been for a number of years, but it really, I guess, came back to the forefront in my office and throughout the state because of recent rescission in an executive order. And the issue, obviously, is biodiesel. That's why we're all here today. About 3-4 years ago, I started doing research on Long Island with Brookhaven National Lab and SUNY Stony Brook. And what I was trying to ascertain as a policymaker is what is the best alternative energy fuel for us to pursue on Long Island and throughout the state. And overwhelmingly, we looked at compressed natural gas, we looked at ethanol, we looked at biodiesel, and overwhelmingly biodiesel came back as the best model for us to pursue. And the reason being, when we eventually get to what our goals are, which is at least a B20 blend in all of our diesel products, instead of changing out all of these systems, the school buses, the cars and trucks that run on diesel, the municipal buses, the mass transportation, the power plants, the home heating systems, there's this major move to move all of these systems to natural gas or other fuel sources to clean up the dirty oil and the diesel oil. Well, with biodiesel, you can put a B20 blend in all of these systems without any retrofitting. So there's no capital cost. All of our old dirty power plants, like for example on Long Island, we have 2 of the dirtiest power plants in the entire nation, Northport and Port Jefferson. According to researchers at Brookhaven National Lab, you can not only put a B20 blend, but you could put a B100 blend in these massive plants and clean up their emissions to the point where they're natural gas levels. At B20, there's no retrofitting. And the cutoff at B20 is because the viscosity of the oil, once you go past B20 and going towards a B100 blend, if the system is over 20 years old, you might have natural rubber hoses and gaskets, and they can become brittle with anything over B20. So you would have to change them out, and that's not the end of the world. But up until B20, they are fine. If you have something that's newer than 20 years old, a truck that was bought 10 years ago, most likely has synthetic rubber hoses and gaskets. Again, no retrofitting. So, this is a remarkable aspect of why biodiesel is so attractive. Why else is it attractive? Well, again, where we can get the source of biodiesel. To get to a B20 blend, we use about 6 billion gallons of diesel in this state every year in everything we do. Home heating systems, cars and trucks, and power plants. And to get to a B20 blend, we need about 2 billion gallons, and that's a conservative measure. And to get to that 2 billion gallons, right now we have about 30 million gallons of waste oil, meaning restaurant grease. Everybody talks about how biodiesel smells like French fries because it either comes from plant fats or animal fats, and the animal fats are used waste streams right now. But that gives us about 30 million gallons. The rest can come from on-farm production. We have 2 million acres of fallow farmland in New York State. With just 200,000 of those acres, we can grow a Chinese tallow, a jatropha nut, or any kind of feedstock that would provide about 200 gallons per acre per crop cycle. So we can grow our oil right here in New York by trying to meet our B20 blend goals. And by growing this oil, when we are using it, we're going to reduce our emissions to the point where they're at natural gas levels. So without having to do massive infrastructure improvements, we can meet our clean air standards. We're meeting a number of goals: environmental, economic, creating jobs. So that is what, for the past few years, I've been working towards as a future towards biodiesel, and I saw a lot of great movement in New York State. I have introduced legislation along with some of my colleagues that are here with us today that I'll call up and to speak to why they're so committed to biodiesel. But it was great that there was already an executive order on the books that helped incentivize investment in the state in the biodiesel infrastructure. And that executive order was put forward by Governor Pataki a number of years ago. As a result of this economic crisis, our current governor, David Paterson, has decided to rescind that executive order. And although I definitely respect that the governor is dealing with one of the worst economic crises we've seen as a state in 70 years. And he's forced with some of the toughest decisions that any governor has faced in 70 years. I just am respectfully urging him to reconsider his rescission of this executive order. And I believe that some of his thought process here is the additional cost of biodiesel. But what we're talking about is the fact that we now create about 100,000 gallons of biodiesel in this state a year. And if we start moving towards those goals of B20 and everything we do, which we know we can create here in New York, at 2 billion gallons, the economies of scale will make biodiesel so much cheaper than petroleum-based diesel. And that's another economic advantage. But we need to walk before we can run. And by taking back this executive order, it's making us crawl again. And it's sending the wrong message to an industry that began investing in this state as a result of that executive order. It's sending the wrong message to all industries that'll look to movement from our executive office and from our legislature of what our economic goals are. If we continue to backtrack whenever times get tough, it sends the wrong message to all industries. So I'm looking for him to rescind this executive order. But in the meantime, as we push for that, we do have legislation to codify this executive order and make it part of state law, so that first, all of our fleets in New York State that use diesel will start with a B5 blend, work their way up to a B10 blend, B15, and then B20. But we're also looking to, like California has, create standards that in their home heating systems, in their power plants, and in their cars and trucks, that they start moving to, by law, a biodiesel blend. And it's going to take us some time to even get there, to get the comfort level with this policy. It's something we have to start discussing now and planning for. And the first step is rescinding this executive order. Other bills that we have create tax credits for farmers to use biodiesel in their farm equipment, or to create biodiesel, again, for on-farm production. I know that with some biofuels, there's a concern with competing in the fuel supply. But I just want to reiterate, we have 2 million acres of fallow farmland. This would take 200,000 acres to meet a very large goal that is going to take us years to get to. And it will not make a dent in terms of what we are producing in terms of other kinds of supplies on farm. And we're seeing other technologies develop that you're talking about 5,000 gallons per acre. That's the marine and green algae that is being developed in some of our labs. So the future for this is very bright as long as we set the standards today and don't pull the rug out through this executive order's rescission.